Lesson 1.5, we are talking about products. What is a product, guys?
Multiplication.
Multiplication. Can you multiply real numbers? Yes, I can too. The first thing we're going to do is look at one property that you will see and you will be given. The multiplicative property of 0 tells us anytime I multiply something by 0, the answer is going to be
0.
And anytime I multiply 0 by anything, the answer is going to be 0. You sound so excited.
0.
The next property, thank you. The next property I don't see as much given, like I do the distributive and associative and commutative, which we're going to review in just a minute. This is the multiplicative property of -1. Anytime I multiply anything through by -1, what happens to the sign? It changes. So notice if it's positive, it changes to negative. But what happens if it's a negative and I multiply it through by a -1?
It becomes positive.
It does become positive. Look at our rules for multiplication. I do not write these out because I like a visual. When I multiply a positive, trying to highlight here. A positive times a positive, the answer is?
Positive.
And a negative times a negative, the answer is? So anytime I'm multiplying the same sign, the result will be positive. You've seen this before, right?
Yes.
If I multiply a positive times a negative, the answer will be negative. Do not write down number 3. We're going to talk about this more as we go. It says the absolute value of the product of 2 or more numbers is the product of their absolute values. What? Let's look at some examples before we try to chew on that. Okay, the important thing that I need you guys to know is right here. Look at example 1. Example 1, notice I am multiplying how many numbers? 4 numbers. How many of them are negative?
3.
If I have an odd number of negative numbers being multiplied, will the answer be positive or negative? If I have an even, the answer will be positive. So I typically like to say, hey, this answer is going to be negative. Are you with me? So I don't even have to look at the signs. I'm just going to look at the numbers. What's 5 times 2?
10.
Times 3? Times 1?
30.
-30, not -31.
Who said 31? You, Isa. No, I said 30.
Okay, so just a reminder, I like to count. You can do it the way that you want. If you want to go from left to right and say -5 times -2 is positive 10, times 3 is positive 30, times -1 is -30, that's fine. You get the same answer. Okay, but I like to just count them. All right, let's go ahead and look at this. Example 2 says -2, all of that to the 5th power. How many negatives do I have? An odd or an even number? Odd. And then we are multiplying that by 1/4. Now, some of you might have to calculate what -2 to the 5th power is without a calculator. All right, so what is -2 to the 5th power, Isabella?
32.
Ooh, try again. It's not 32, it is?
64.
Nope, it's not 60. It's -32.
Oh, same thing.
And it's not. I'd much rather have $32 than -$32. Now, I have to take 1/4 of -32, and the answer is what, guys?
8.
-8.
Smarties.
Easy, hard?
Easy. Perfecto.
All right, the next question, I would like for you to write it down. I would like for you to star, circle, highlight it because it's muy importante. You do need to know this. You will see this again on a test or a quiz. The reason I have you to star, circle, and highlight this is because there's something I want you guys to see. Do you notice that we have something in common? Didn't mean to do that. Wanted to highlight. -0.2 and -0.2. Do y'all see that?
Yes.
Do you realize that you can use the opposite of the distributive property, which is called factoring, to get those out of there? Okay, so I'm going to write this above. That you can factor out a -0.2. And if I do that, what do I have left over, guys? Okay, don't I have 387 plus 13 left over? And isn't that a whole heck of a lot easier to multiply?
Yes.
Is this negative 0.2 times 400 instead of multiplying them through separately? So we call this factoring. We started out in Algebra 1 calling it opposite of the distributive property because a lot of you guys don't see it, that you can do that, but I want you to start seeing it, okay? So what is 400 times negative 0.2? Negative 80. So the answer here was negative 80. Now, some of you might have gotten that doing a lot of work, but don't you agree that that's a lot easier?
That was way
I
easier.
agree.
All right, stick with me for just a second. Let's talk about this. If I have the distributive property, 2 times a plus b, distribute that through for me, Ava.
2a plus 2b.
2a plus 2b. Because here's my biggest question. When I show something like this, they say, wait, you turned 2 of these into 1. But isn't that what happens in the distributive property? Don't we turn 1, 2 into 2 2s? Okay, so remember we're just factoring these guys out to make that 2. I did not say pack up. I still have 5 minutes, and I'll use 6 if you're lucky. All right, moving on to example 4. Write it down, solve. I'm going to show you a little trick in here. You're going to love it. What'd you say?
I said 0.
You
I
got
didn't get
0? All right, so let's start out. What is negative 18 plus 7, everyone?
Negative 11.
What is negative 18 minus 7, everyone? Negative 25. Now, I know a negative times a negative will be, so this will be a positive answer. Now, a lot of you are struggling because I'm not giving you a calculator, but we have this little 11s trick. I'm going to write it over here. If I have 11 times any number, remember that we could separate 2 and 5. Do y'all remember this? And then we can add 2 plus 5 together. So what do we get?
7.
Okay, anytime I multiply something through by 11, separate it first. 3, 4. Add together. Wow, you guys aren't catching on as quickly as my other class. What about 11 times 51? Can you answer that?
561.
561. What about 11 and 24?
264.
What about 11 and 88? Uh-oh, we got a problema. Okay, we know that 8 and 8 are going to separate, but our problem comes when I add 8 and 8. What do I get? 16. So we're going to put our 6 here and carry that 1 and just add it together. So it's 968. Pretty fun trick, right? So if I have, where were we? Here we go. Negative 11 times negative 25, what would the answer be?
100.
Not 100. 275. All right, last question. I want you guys to multiply right here. Remember, we are distributing on this one, so we're going to take this negative 3/4 and multiply it by negative 28 t squared. And then we're going to take that negative 3/4 and multiply it through by 12. And we can cross reduce. This is that detail that I said you really need to pay attention to. 4 and 28 could reduce to be what? 7. So I know I have a negative 3 times a negative 7, which is what? 21t squared. Oh, do I need that plus sign?
No.
Because the next one's going to be what? Negative. So let's go ahead and show this as a negative sign. 4 and 12 can reduce to be what?
3.
And the answer is 21t squared minus 9.